That shooting, the latest in what's been a busy past week for police in Wichita. Today, the Chief of Police, Joe Sullivan, talking about the recent violence. Dylan Domingue joining us now in the newsroom. Dylan, what was the Chief's message this afternoon?
Well, Rachel, just since this past weekend, there have been 7 shootings in different parts of the city. It's resulted in 1 person dead and multiple others hurt. Today, Chief Joe Sullivan expressing his concern as Wichita police created a timeline to highlight all of the events. They say in only 1 instance where the shootings connected. He says none of the people involved in the recent incidents were on their radar. Chief Sullivan says they will continue to do their part to prevent gun violence, but they also need help from you.
We need the help of the community. We need people to be responsible for their own family members, their own loved ones, especially our young people. Know what's in their rooms, know where they are late at night. Be ready to intervene when you see a family disturbance develop. It doesn't have to escalate to gun violence. Sometimes, it's better just to walk away.
And Chief Sullivan did add that they did make multiple arrests in these recent cases. He credits technology like the flock system for that. He says going into this weekend, the first quarter of 2026, they had a historically low number of shooting victims. Rachel.
Dylan, thank you.